crack of a
You need to
rifle
calm down
split the
now.
dawn air.
This ain't the
Cole
way.
Blackwood ducked behind the weathered fence post as splinters exploded inches from his face. 3 rustlers were driving off his last good cattle that meant the difference between survival and ruin. "That's far enough," Cole's voice carried across the dusty yard, hard as iron, his Winchester leveled with practiced precision. The lead rustler wheeled his horse, a sneer beneath his dirt-crusted bandana. "Blackwood? Figured you'd be too busy watching your land dry up to notice us?" Cole's response came from the barrel of his rifle. The shot caught the rustler's shoulder, spinning him from his saddle. The other 2 scattered, abandoning their wounded companion and the stolen cattle. Calmness settled over Cole as he approached the fallen man, boots kicking up dust from soil that hadn't seen rain in over 6 months. Wyoming, 1885. The drought had turned the once fertile valley into a wasteland. Cole's ranch, 15 years of back-breaking work, was withering before his eyes. 3 years since Martha had been laid in the hard ground, taken by fever. 3 years of him fighting the land, the elements, and his own crushing solitude. The wounded rustler glared up at him with hate-filled eyes. "Just finish it, Blackwood." "Not my way," Cole replied, binding the man's wound with a bandana. "But you're going to tell me who sent you." Fear flickered across the rustler's face. "They'll kill me. I'm right here, and I'm not feeling particularly patient." Cole pressed the barrel against the man's knee. "Monroe! It was Monroe from the bank!" the rustler gasped. "Said if enough ranchers get desperate, the land goes cheap when the bank forecloses." Cole's jaw tightened. Monroe. The bank had been pressuring ranchers throughout the valley, calling in loans early, refusing extensions. But why target Cole specifically? As he searched the rustler's pockets, Cole found something that changed everything. A folded paper with a crude map. His land was circled with strange markings and numbers. Beneath it, scrawled hastily, "Assay confirms gold deposit, Blackwood property priority acquisition, gold," on his worthless, drought-stricken land. Cole handed the rustler over to his neighbor for delivery to the sheriff. His mind raced with implications. If there was gold, he needed someone who could find it, extract it, someone with knowledge he didn't possess. With trembling hands, he penned a letter to a mining company in St. Louis. "Seeking experienced mining engineer. Prefer older gentleman, steady disposition. Situation requires discretion. Generous terms offered." 6 weeks later, the stagecoach rolled into Redemption Springs. Cole waited, scanning for a graying gentleman among the passengers. Instead, a woman descended, tall, auburn-haired, with intelligent eyes that surveyed the dusty street with clinical precision. She wore a practical riding skirt and carried a battered leather case. "Mr. Blackwood," she approached directly. "Elizabeth Warren, you requested a mining engineer." Cole stared, momentarily speechless. Behind him, whispers rippled through the townsfolk gathered at the general store porch. "There must be some mistake," he finally managed. "No mistake." Her voice was steady, educated. "Harvard School of Mines, class of '79. Top of my class, though they wouldn't print my full name on the degree." Cole lowered his voice. "Ma'am, I asked for a mining engineer who can determine if your property contains extractable gold deposits," she interrupted. "That's me. Unless you prefer Monroe at the bank knows why you're suddenly interested in geology." Cole's head snapped up. "How do you—" "People talk on stagecoaches, especially bankers' associates who don't realize ladies understand business matters." She held his gaze without flinching. "Now, shall we discuss terms, or should I catch the next stage out?" Heads turned as Cole escorted Elizabeth to his wagon. Sheriff Buchanan watched from the jailhouse steps, his Union Army bearing still evident 15 years after Appomattox. Cole nodded stiffly at his old enemy. feeling the weight of the badge's gaze between his shoulder blades. "Mighty particular company you're keeping, Blackwood," Buchanan called. "Folks might wonder what brings a fancy lady scientist all the way from back east." "Folks might mind their business," Cole replied without slowing. The wagon ride to the ranch stretched 17 miles across parched terrain. Elizabeth didn't complain about the heat or dust, instead asking pointed questions about water sources, rock formations, and soil composition. Cole found himself answering more thoroughly than intended, impressed despite himself. His ranch appeared on the horizon, a modest house, barn, and outbuildings, standing defiant against the harsh landscape. Fences enclosed pastures where too few cattle grazed on too little grass. A painful contrast to the thriving operation he'd built with Martha. "It's not much," Cole said gruffly as he helped Elizabeth down. "It will serve," she replied, already studying the surrounding landscape with narrowed eyes. "There's a creek bed to the north? Dry these past 8 months. Show me anyway." By sunset, Elizabeth had examined the creek bed, collected rock samples, and made detailed notes. Over a simple supper of beans and biscuits, she laid out her conditions. "I'll need 3 weeks to complete my assessment. Full access to your land. My findings remain confidential between us. 20% of any proceeds if we discover workable deposits." Cole nearly choked. 20% is highway robbery. 20% is fair compensation for the expertise you lack and desperately need. She sipped her coffee calmly. "Particularly when the alternative is losing everything to Monroe." 15, Cole countered. 18, and I'll help set up initial extraction operations." Cole studied her face. Determined, intelligent, uncompromising. 18 it is. But we keep this quiet, and you understand, this is strictly business. "Mr. Blackwood," Elizabeth replied evenly, "I didn't travel 800 miles for romance. I came for gold and professional respect. Two things equally difficult for a woman to obtain." That night, as Cole checked his property from the porch, rifle across his knees, he spotted movement near the tree line. Wolves had been growing bolder as the drought forced them closer to ranches in search of prey. But these shadows moved with purpose. A shot cracked the night. Cole rolled behind a water barrel as bullets splintered the porch railing. 3 riders firing from the darkness. Cole returned fire, the muzzle flash momentarily blinding him. A window shattered behind him. Then came an unexpected sound. Elizabeth's rifle joining the fight from an upstairs window. Her shots were precise, practiced. One rider yelled in pain, and the attackers retreated, leaving only dust and questions. "Where did you learn to shoot like that?" Cole asked as they searched for blood trails in the gray dawn light. "My father was a bounty hunter in Arizona territory," Elizabeth replied, examining a crimson splash on a rock. "He didn't believe in leaving his daughters defenseless. They found a fallen hat with initials inside. J.M. James Monroe. The banker wasn't waiting for foreclosure anymore." Over the following days, Elizabeth worked methodically, taking samples across Cole's property. Cole divided his time between ranch work and watching for threats. Each night brought the howling of wolves closer, as though the land itself was conspiring against them. On the 5th day, Elizabeth returned from the northern section, with eyes bright with suppressed excitement. "The geological markers are unmistakable," she said, spreading her notes across the kitchen table. "Quartz veins with significant gold content. Not surface placer deposits, but a true lode. It follows this fault line." Her finger traced a path across his crude property map. Potentially extensive. Cole stared at the map, emotions warring within him. Salvation for his ranch, justice against Monroe, yet also the end of the life he'd known. Gold brought men like locusts, devouring everything in their path. "There's more," Elizabeth said, her voice dropping. "The formation continues north, under Redemption Creek, then eastward. Monroe's been buying those properties cheap, so Monroe knows. Not exactly where or how extensive. That paper your rustler carried was preliminary. They need more precise information. Her eyes met his. Information I now possess. A wolf howled in the distance, closer than before. We need supplies, Cole decided, and I need to understand exactly what we're sitting on before Monroe makes another move. The trip to town proved fateful. As they crested the ridge overlooking Redemption Springs, Cole spotted an unusual number of horses outside the saloon. A sleek black carriage with silver fittings stood before the hotel. Wealth on wheels, out of place in their struggling town. Something's wrong, Cole murmured, reaching for his rifle. They bypassed Main Street, approaching from behind the livery. Jenkins, the stable hand who'd escaped slavery during the war, greeted them with nervous eyes. Mr. Blackwood, you picked a poor day to visit. Harrison Reed arrived on the morning train. Cole's blood chilled. Harrison Reed, railroad magnate, speculator, and rumored associate of corrupt politicians back east. Monroe's been crowing about big changes coming, Jenkins continued, glancing over his shoulder. Reed's men are drinking at the saloon, talking free about clearing the valley for progress. What kind of progress? Elizabeth asked sharply. Railroad spur, mining operations. They're saying eminent domain might be declared for any who won't sell. As they gathered supplies, Cole noticed the changed atmosphere. Some townsfolk avoided his gaze. Others watched too carefully. Sheriff Buchanan stood outside the jailhouse, his expression unreadable as he tracked their movements. When gunfire erupted from an alley, Cole was almost expecting it. He shoved Elizabeth behind a water trough as bullets kicked up dirt around them. Townspeople scattered, diving for cover. Cole returned fire, catching one attacker in the leg. The man screamed, clutching his thigh as blood poured between his fingers. His companion fled, leaving him behind. Reed sent you? Cole demanded, standing over the wounded man. Just following orders, the man gasped. Nothing personal. A folded document fell from the man's jacket. Elizabeth grabbed it, her face paling as she scanned its contents. It's a geological survey, she whispered, with my name on it. Back at the ranch, she explained with trembling hands. Reed commissioned my brother's company. When Thomas died unexpectedly, Reed approached me. I needed the work. Her eyes flashed with anger and shame. I didn't know what Reed planned until I overheard his men discussing how accidents could speed up acquisition. Thomas didn't die from fever. He was murdered because he discovered Reed's tactics in Colorado. Cole's expression hardened. So you used my situation to investigate Reed? Yes, and to find proof of what he did to Thomas. She met his gaze unflinchingly. But what I told you about the gold is true, and now Reed knows I've betrayed him. That night brought new danger. As moonlight silvered the drought-stricken landscape, wolves attacked the cattle pen. Cole and Elizabeth fought them off with rifles and determination, standing back to back against snarling death. In the aftermath, Cole found it wasn't only four-legged predators they'd faced. Human tracks, he pointed to footprints among the wolf signs. Someone drove them toward the ranch deliberately. Reed's men, or Monroe's, trying to finish what the drought started. With morning came worse news. Sheriff Buchanan rode up with two deputies, a warrant in hand. Cole Blackwood, you're under arrest for the murder of James Monroe. What? Cole's hand instinctively moved toward his gun before freezing. Monroe's dead? Shot last night. His clerk identified you leaving his office after hours. Buchanan's face betrayed nothing. Witnesses heard you threaten him publicly yesterday. It was a setup perfectly executed. With Cole jailed, his ranch would be defenseless against Reed's plans. Elizabeth would have no protection from men seeking Reed's favor by returning her to him. Cole surrendered his gun. This is Reed's doing. Maybe so, Buchanan replied quietly. But my job is to uphold the law as written, not as it should be. As they led Cole away, he locked eyes with Elizabeth. 18%, he said meaningfully. She nodded, understanding his message to continue their arrangement, to fight in his absence. The cell was hot, airless, with only a small barred window overlooking the dusty street. Through it, Cole watched Reed's men coming and going freely, their employer's influence evident in their swagger. When night fell, unexpected footsteps approached. "Buchanan," Cole acknowledged as the sheriff appeared outside the cell. "We fought on opposite sides once," Buchanan said, voice low. "I've never held that against you, despite what you think. Evidence suggests otherwise. Evidence can mislead." Buchanan glanced down the hallway. "Monroe was killed with a Navy Colt. Civil War issue. Left side of his desk was emptied before he died." Cole's eyes narrowed. His records. Records of loans, payments, property transfers, all gone. Buchanan leaned closer. Reed's men were drinking when it happened, but one had blood on his sleeve later. Why tell me this? Because 15 years ago, we both took oaths to defend something. Different flags, same principles underneath. Buchanan's weathered face showed rare emotion. "Reed's bought judges in 3 counties. Evidence won't matter at your trial?" A key slid across the floor. "I'm riding to Fort Laramie tonight. Military patrol needs escort. Won't be back till morning." Buchanan turned away. "What happens in my absence isn't my concern." Freedom came with a price. Cole was now a fugitive. He slipped through town like a ghost, avoiding Reed's men patrolling the streets. Jenkins provided a horse, a debt repaid from when Cole had stopped drunken Confederates from lynching the man years earlier. At the ranch, Cole found Elizabeth and 3 neighboring ranchers waiting, men who'd also refused Reed's offers, men with nothing left to lose. Monroe's records contained proof of Reed's methods, Cole told them. Falsified loans, forged signatures on property transfers, enough to interest federal marshals if we can recover them. "Reed keeps everything in his private rail car," Elizabeth added, "including geological surveys proving he knew about the gold deposits before beginning acquisitions." As dawn broke, they finalized their plan. While Elizabeth created a distraction at the hotel, Cole and the ranchers would infiltrate Reed's heavily guarded rail car. It was desperation, not strategy, but honest men pushed too far have little regard for odds. The operation went wrong almost immediately. Reed's guards were more numerous and better positioned than expected. Gunfire erupted. One rancher fell, clutching his chest. Another returned fire, creating momentary confusion that allowed Cole to slip aboard the luxurious car. Inside, Reed himself sat calmly behind a mahogany desk, a derringer aimed at Cole's heart. "Mr. Blackwood, I wondered when you'd make this predictably futile gesture. Where are Monroe's records?" Reed smiled thinly. "You have larger concerns. Your female engineer is currently entertaining my associates at the hotel." Cold fear gripped Cole. "If they harm her—" "Business, Mr. Blackwood. Merely business. Gold creates opportunities for reasonable men, or consequences for unreasonable ones." Outside, gunfire intensified. Reed's smile faltered as unexpected shots came from a new direction. Through the window, Cole glimpsed Sheriff Buchanan leading mounted soldiers toward the train station. "Appears your business partners have arrived," Cole said grimly. Reed's derringer wavered. Cole lunged, knocking the weapon aside as it discharged harmlessly into the wall. They grappled across the opulent car, overturning furniture, smashing glassware. Reed fought with the desperate strength of a cornered animal, but Cole had been hardened by years of struggle against unforgiving land. When Buchanan and the soldiers burst in, Cole had Reed pinned, bloodied but conscious. "Perfect timing, Sheriff," Cole panted. Buchanan surveyed the scene. "Found something interesting at Fort Laramie. Telegraph from federal marshals. They've been investigating Reed for land fraud across 3 territories. A young officer stepped forward. Mr. Harrison Reed, you're under arrest for conspiracy, fraud, and suspicion of murder. As they led Reed away, Cole found Monroe's ledger hidden in a compartment beneath the desk, along with Elizabeth's original surveys, proving Reed's knowledge of the gold deposits. Evidence enough for prosecution? Later, as dust settled over Redemption Springs, Cole and Elizabeth stood on his porch, watching sunset paint the drought-stricken land in false gold. "What will you do now?" she asked. "Dig, I suppose." Cole gazed across his property. "But not just for gold. This valley needs water more than wealth. The right engineering could create irrigation from the mountain runoff." Elizabeth smiled slightly. 18% of irrigation doesn't sound particularly profitable. "Depends on what you value," Cole replied. "Gold's no good to dead men. This land sustained my family before the drought. It can again. You'll need a competent engineer." Their eyes met, understanding passing between them. "Not romance. That might come later, or not at all. Something more fundamental. Partnership. Respect." In the distance, a train whistle announced new arrivals. Word of gold traveled fast. Soon the valley would fill with dreamers, schemers, and desperate men. "They're coming," Elizabeth observed. Cole nodded, shoulders straightening. "Let them come. This time, we make the rules." The Winchester rifle rested easily across his arm, not in threat, but in promise. Whatever came next, he would meet it standing.